They call him a monster now, but 10 years ago, he was a god in a three-piece suit. I was pregnant with his twins. I was on my knees in the ballroom, begging him to save me. He looked at the crowd cold as ice and said, "I have never seen this trash before. Security, get her out." He turned his back. He drank his champagne. He destroyed me to protect his empire. I thought he was a devil. I didn't know that 10 years later he would burn that empire to the ground, just to get me back. I am 38 years old now. I have 2 sons who look exactly like the man who ruined my life, and when I close my eyes, I don't see the dingy apartment in Incheon where we hid for 5 years. I don't see the blood or the hospital bills. I see the chandelier. It was the size of a small car, dripping with crystal tears, suspended over the ballroom of the Shilla Hotel. I see the light refracting off the champagne flutes, casting rainbows over the people who thought I was invisible. 10 years ago, Seoul. The night of the merger. I wasn't supposed to be working the floor. I was an artist, for God's sake. I had paint under my fingernails that no amount of scrubbing could remove. But art doesn't pay the rent in a city that eats the poor for breakfast. And Mama Jean's medication cost more than what I made selling sketches to tourists in Hongdae. So, I put on the black vest. I pulled my natural hair back into a tight, painful bun. I became a ghost with a tray of hors d'oeuvres. I knew he would be there. Kang Tae-os. Even now, saying his name feels like swallowing broken glass. He was the heir to the KG syndicate, though the newspapers called it the KG conglomerate. Construction, shipping, waste management. If it was dirty and made billions, the Kangs owned it. We had spent 3 months in a fever dream, a secret, a collision of worlds that shouldn't have touched. He found me sketching by the Han River at 2 a.m., and for 90 days, he wasn't the crown prince of the underworld, and I wasn't Simone, the broke expatriate trying to survive. We were just breath and heat and skin. He told me he hated his life. He told me he wanted out. He told me I was the only thing that felt real. Stupid, stupid girl. I stood by the pillar, my tray heavy with caviar spoons, watching him across the room. He looked devastating. A 3-piece suit cut from midnight blue silk, hair perfectly styled, face unreadable. He was standing next to her, Baek Ha-eun, the antagonist of my life story. The woman who would eventually teach me that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a porcelain doll with a PhD. She was the daughter of the Minister of Justice. Their marriage was the seal on the merger that would wash the Kang money clean. She was touching his arm, possessive, claiming. I should have looked away, but I was 28 and in love, and I was desperate. I needed him to see me. I needed to know that the nights we spent tangled in my studio apartment meant something. He turned, his eyes locked onto mine. For a second, the noise of the ballroom, the clinking glasses, the polite laughter, the string quartet, dropped into a vacuum. I saw the recognition. I saw the flare of heat. And then I saw the terror. He looked at me. Then he looked at his father, the elder, sitting on a throne-like chair in the corner. Then he looked at Ha-eun, and the steel door slammed shut. His face went blank, cold, dead. He didn't just ignore me. He erased me. "Champagne," a voice snapped. I jolted, nearly dropping the tray. Ha-eun was standing in front of me. She wasn't looking at my face. She was looking at the cheap shoes I'd tried to polish with a Sharpie. She smiled, but her eyes were like shark fins breaking the water. "You're shaking," she said, her voice loud enough to carry. "Are you nervous?" "No, ma'am," I whispered. "I'm fine." "You've been staring at my fiancé for 10 minutes," she said. The conversation around us died. Heads turned. The elite of Seoul smell blood in the water faster than any predator. Tae-os walked over. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Save me," I thought. "Tell her we know each other. Tell her I'm a person." "Is there a problem?" Tae-os asked. His voice was smooth, deep, the voice that used to whisper promises against my neck. "This server," Ha-eun said, gesturing to me like I was a spill on the rug. "She's acting strangely and, oh my God." She gasped, her hand flying to her throat. "My bracelet, the diamond tennis bracelet. It's gone. My blood ran cold. I didn't touch you, I stammered. I haven't been near you. She brushed past me a moment ago, Ha-eun announced, her voice pitching up into perfect victimized distress. Check her pockets. No, I said, stepping back. The tray rattled. I didn't steal anything. Tae-os, please. I used his name. That was the mistake. That was the nail in the coffin. The room gasped. A server using the heir's first name? The familiarity was damning. It implied intimacy. It implied a secret. Ha-eun turned to Tae-os, her eyes wide and wet. You know her? This was the moment, the crossroads. He could have said, I know her, she's honest. He could have said, it's a misunderstanding. Tae-os looked at me. He looked at the desperation in my face. He looked at his father, who was now standing up, watching with a dark, heavy scowl. The merger depended on this night. The legitimacy of his family depended on Ha-eun. Tae-os made his choice. He stepped into my personal space. He loomed over me, smelling of sandalwood and betrayal. He didn't blink. I have never seen this woman in my life, he said. The lie hit me physically, like a punch to the solar plexus. I couldn't breathe. But, Tae-os continued, his voice rising, projecting for the crowd, I saw her near your purse earlier, Ha-eun. Security. Two men in black suits materialized from the shadows. They grabbed my arms. The tray fell. Crystal shattered against the marble floor, 1,000 pieces of expensive glass exploding like my life. Search her, Tae-os commanded. He was looking right at me, and his eyes were full of hate. Not for me, I realized later, but for himself. He had to kill the part of him that loved me to survive this room, so he did it with a sledgehammer. One of the guards shoved his hand into my apron pocket. I screamed. It was a violation. It was public humiliation. He pulled out the bracelet. I stared at it. It wasn't possible. I hadn't taken it. Ha-eun must have planted it when she bumped me, or maybe the guard had it the whole time. It didn't matter. The truth didn't matter. Power mattered. A thief, Ha-eun hissed, and a liar. Get her out of here, Tae-os said. He turned his back on me. He adjusted his cufflinks. And make sure she never works in this city again. Call the police. Ensure she is deported if she's not a citizen. Tae-os! I screamed as they dragged me backward. My heels scraped across the floor. I didn't do it. You know I didn't do it. He didn't turn around. He took Ha-eun's hand and kissed her knuckles. The guards dragged me through the kitchen, past the staring staff, and threw me out the back exit into the alley. I landed hard on the wet asphalt. My knees tore open. The cold winter air bit into my skin. Don't come back, one of them spat. If Mr. Kang sees you again, you won't walk away next time. I lay there in the garbage juice and the snow, gasping for air. I had lost my job. I would lose my visa. I had been branded a thief in front of the most powerful people in Korea. But as I curled into a ball, clutching my stomach, I felt a strange, cramping pain. A heavy, dull ache deep in my womb. I didn't know it then. I wouldn't know for another 3 weeks. I wasn't just losing my dignity in that alley. I was protecting a secret. I was pregnant. And not just with one child, 2, Malik and Micah, the heirs to the empire that had just thrown me out like trash. I looked up at the light spilling from the hotel windows, hearing the muffled applause as Tae-os probably proposed a toast. I hate you, I whispered to the cold dark. I will hate you until the day I die. I picked myself up. I wiped the blood from my knees. I didn't have money for a cab. I walked 4 miles back to the studio apartment, shivering, broken, and completely alone. Or so I thought. The war had started. He fired the first shot. He just didn't know that I was walking away with the ammunition that would one day burn his entire world to the ground. Poverty has a smell. It smells like damp drywall, boiled cabbage, and bleach used to kill mold that never really dies. For 5 years, that was my perfume. I didn't leave Korea. I couldn't. Ha-eun had been thorough. My visa was flagged, my passport held in bureaucratic purgatory pending an investigation into the theft that never happened. I was trapped on the peninsula, but I vanished from Seoul. I went to Incheon, the port city, the place where cargo containers go to rust and people go to be forgotten. Mama Jean saved us. When I came home that night, Bleeding and disgraced, she didn't ask questions. She packed our bags. She was 60 years old, with arthritis in her hands and a heart condition she couldn't afford to treat, but she became a fortress. "We don't break, Simone," she told me while I screamed through labor in a basement clinic that took cash and asked for no names. "We bend, iron bends, but we do not break." Malik came first, screaming, fighting, fists clenched. Micah came second, silent, eyes wide open, watching. They were beautiful, and they were terrifying, because every day they grew, they looked more like him. Malik had his jawline, Micah had his eyes, that dark, intense stare that could strip paint off a wall. Raising them was a covert operation. "Don't speak English outside," I told them. "Don't tell people your last name. If you see a black car with tinted windows, you run to Grandma." Fear was our religion. By the time the boys were 5, I was working at the foundry. It sounded industrial because it was. It was a converted warehouse near the docks, run by a low-level gangster named Mr. Choi. He employed disgraced artists, art students with drug debts, and people like me, ghosts. We churned out authentic, abstract expressionist pieces that were sold in Gangnam galleries for $50,000. I got paid $10 an hour. It was slavery with a paintbrush, but it put rice on the table. It bought Micah his inhaler. It kept the lights on. October 14th, the day the world ended for the second time. It was raining, a cold, miserable rain that leaked through the metal roof of the foundry, plinking into buckets we'd set up around the easels. The smell of turpentine was suffocating. I was working on a massive canvas, 6 feet of chaotic black and blue strokes. Rage, pure rage on canvas. Mr. Choi liked my rage. It sold well. "Simone," Mama Jean whispered. She was sitting in the corner, knitting. She came to work with me because we couldn't afford childcare, and the boys were homeschooled, which meant they sat behind a stack of crates reading beaten-up books I found in the trash. "The boys are restless." "10 more minutes, Mama," I said, wiping sweat from my forehead with a paint-stained rag. "I just need to finish this layer." "I'm hungry," Malik whispered, popping his head out from behind the crates. He was small for 5, but wiry. Tough. "Micah's stomach is making noises." "Here." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a hard-boiled egg. "Split it. Do not fight." They retreated into the shadows. I went back to the canvas, losing myself in the rhythm of the stroke. Slash, burn, hide. Then the heavy metal doors at the front of the warehouse rolled open with a screech that sounded like a dying animal. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Mr. Choi, usually a loud-mouthed bully, scrambled out of his office, bowing so low his nose nearly touched the concrete. "Welcome, sir. Welcome. An honor. We weren't expecting—" "I don't announce inspections," a voice said. My brush froze in midair. The air left my lungs. My heart stopped, then restarted with a violent thud that echoed in my ears. I knew that voice. It was deeper now, rougher, like it had been dragged over gravel. But it was him. Kang Tae-os. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I hunched my shoulders, trying to make myself smaller. I pulled my hood up. "Please." I prayed to a God I hadn't spoken to in years. "Please let him walk past. Please let him be blind." He walked down the center aisle, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. Click, click, click. The sound of expensive Italian leather on dirty concrete. He wasn't alone. I could hear the rustle of suits behind him, his entourage. "This is garbage," Tae-os said, dismissing a row of landscapes painted by a weeping art student. "Burn it." "Yes, sir," Choi stammered. "Immediately, sir." He was getting closer. I stared at the black paint on my canvas. It looked like a void. I wanted to jump into it. "And this?" Tae-os stopped. He was right behind me. I could feel the heat radiating off him. I could smell the sandalwood, mixed now with the metallic scent of rain and tobacco. He was looking at my painting. "This is energetic," Choi said nervously. "The artist is—" "Quiet," Tae-os commanded. Silence stretched. It was thick and suffocating. "The technique," Tae-os murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "The aggression in the brushwork, it's familiar." He stepped closer. I saw his hand enter my peripheral vision. He reached out and touched the wet paint. "Look at me," he said. I didn't move. I said, "Look at me." His hand clamped onto my shoulder. His grip was hard, possessive. It wasn't an invitation, it was an arrest. He spun me around on the stool. I kept my head down, my eyes fixed on his tie, a silver silk tie. Immaculate. "Chin up," he ordered. I slowly lifted my head. 10 years. He had aged. There were silver strands in his temples now. A scar ran through his left eyebrow, cutting the hair. His eyes were harder, colder, deadened by a decade of doing terrible things to keep his empire floating. But God help me, the pull was still there, the magnetic, toxic gravity that had ruined me once. He stared at me. I watched the recognition hit him in waves. First, confusion. Then, disbelief. Then, shock. His face went pale. His mouth opened slightly, then snapped shut. "Simone?" he whispered. The name sounded like a ghost leaving his lips. "You have the wrong person," I said, my voice raspy. I tried to pull away. "I'm just a worker. Let me go." "It's you," he said. The shock was being replaced by something else. Anger? Relief? "My God, you're here." He looked around the filthy warehouse, taking in the leaking roof, the buckets, the smell of poverty. His gaze landed on my hands, chapped, stained, rough. "You've been in Incheon," he said, "for 5 years?" "You sent me here," I spat. The fear was turning into adrenaline. "You and your wife. You destroyed my life, remember? You don't get to act surprised." "I didn't know," he said. "I thought you went back to America. You thought I disappeared." I cut him off. "I did. Now let me go back to being invisible." He didn't let go of my shoulder. His grip tightened. "No, we need to talk. There are things I need to understand. There is nothing to talk about." "Mama!" The small voice cut through the tension like a knife. I froze. Tae-os froze. We both turned. Malik was standing by the crates. He was holding the half-eaten egg. He was wearing a t-shirt that was 2 sizes too big, stained with mud. But his face. He was looking up at Tae-os with the exact same scowl Tae-os was wearing. Tae-os looked at the boy. Then he looked at me. Then he looked back at the boy. "Who is that?" Tae-os asked. His voice was trembling, a tremor I had never heard before. "Go back to Grandma Malik," I said, my voice shaking. "Run! Now!" "No," Malik said stubbornly. He stepped forward, putting himself between me and the tall man in the suit. "Leave my mom alone." Tae-os stared. He was doing the math. I could see the numbers scrolling behind his eyes. 5 years, the face, the eyes, the jaw. Then Micah stepped out. If Malik was the anger, Micah was the silence. He stood next to his brother, clutching a sketchbook. He looked even more like Tae-os. He looked like a miniature clone of the man who had broken my heart. The air in the warehouse vanished. Tae-os released my shoulder. He took a step toward the boys. He looked like he had been shot in the chest. "Twins," he breathed. "You have twins." "They're not yours," I lied. It was a weak, pathetic lie, a desperate shield made of paper. "Get away from them." Tae-os turned back to me. The shock was gone. In its place was a fire that terrified me. It wasn't the cold dismissal of the hotel ballroom. It was an inferno of realization. "They have my face, Simone," he said. His voice dropped to a growl. "They have my face." "They are my sons," I hissed, stepping in front of him, blocking his view. "Mine. I raised them. I fed them. I held them when they were sick. You were in a penthouse drinking scotch. You don't get to claim them." "How old are they?" he demanded. He wasn't asking. He was interrogating. "Leave," I screamed. "How old?" His voice roared, echoing off the metal walls. The other workers stopped painting. Mr. Choi was cowering in the corner. "5, I whispered. "They're 5. Tae-os closed his eyes. He swayed slightly, as if the weight of the years had just landed on his shoulders all at once. 5 years, he muttered. "You stole 5 years from me." I stole? I laughed, a bitter, jagged sound. You threw me in the trash, Tae-os. You framed me. You left me to die. I did what I had to do to save the family, he shouted back. Well, congratulations. I gestured to the warehouse, to my rags, to my terrified children. You saved the family, and you created this. He looked at the boys again. Malik was trembling, but standing his ground. Micah was hiding behind his brother. Tae-os looked at his security guards. Clear the room, he said. Sir? One of the guards asked. Everyone out! Tae-os screamed. Now! The workers scrambled. Mr. Choi ran. The guards ushered everyone out the metal doors. It was just us, me, him, Mama Jean in the corner, clutching her knitting needles like weapons, and the twins. Tae-os walked toward me. I backed up until I hit the easel. He stopped inches from my face. He reached out and touched my cheek. His hand was shaking. You think you can hide this from me? He whispered. You think you can keep my blood in a basement? I will run, I vowed. I will take them and run so far you'll never find us. You can't run, he said. Not anymore. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. He dialed a number. Bring the car around, he said into the phone, his eyes never leaving mine. And call the estate. Tell my father. He paused. Tell my father I found the future. He hung up. You're coming with me, he said. All of you. I'd rather die, I said. If you stay here, Tae-os said, leaning in so close his lips brushed my ear, Ha-un will find out, and if she finds out before I secure them, she will kill them. The threat hung in the cold air. She knows, he whispered. She has spies everywhere. She probably knows you're here right now. The only safe place for them is behind my walls. He stepped back and extended his hand. Get your things, Simone. You wanted a war? You just started one. I looked at Malik and Micah. I looked at the fear in their eyes. I looked at Mama Jean, who slowly nodded. We had no choice. The monster had found us, and now, to save my children from the wolf, I had to walk into the dragon's den. Don't touch them, I warned him. I won't, Tae-os said. Not yet. But as we walked out into the rain, flanked by his guards, I saw the way he looked at the boys. It was a hunger, an obsession. He didn't just want to be a father, he wanted to own them. Wealth is quiet. That's the first thing you forget when you're poor. Poverty is loud, shouting neighbors, rattling pipes, the constant grind of survival. But wealth? It's a vacuum. It swallows sound. The Mercedes S-Class was a tomb. We sat in the back, the four of us crammed into leather seats that cost more than my entire life's earnings. Mama Jean held Micah on her lap, her knuckles white as she gripped his small, trembling knee. Malik sat between us, staring out the tinted window at the rain-slicked streets of Incheon blurring into the highway. Tae-os sat in the front passenger seat. He hadn't said a word since we left the warehouse. He just watched us through the rearview mirror. His eyes were dark, predatory, unblinking. Every time I looked up, he was there, dissecting me, dissecting them. I could smell him. That was the worst part. The air conditioning circulated his scent. Sandalwood, rain, and that crisp, expensive cologne he'd worn 10 years ago. It triggered a muscle memory deep in my body, a phantom ache of the nights we'd spent tangled in sheets before he became the monster who destroyed me. Where are we going? I asked, breaking the silence. My voice sounded small in the plush interior. Safe house, Tae-os said. His voice was rough, like he'd swallowed gravel. Pyeongchang-dong. That's the rich district, Mama Jean said, her voice sharp. That ain't a hideout, that's a billboard. It's a fortress, Tae-os corrected. High walls, private security. No one gets in unless I say so. Does she know? I asked. I didn't have to say her name. The temperature in the car dropped. Ha-un knows everything, Tae-os said quietly. She knew you were in Incheon before I did. She's been watching you, Simone, waiting. The blood drained from my face. Watching us? For how long? I don't know, he admitted. And that was terrifying. The man who controlled half the underworld didn't know the extent of his own fiancée's web. But she didn't strike. That means she was waiting for leverage, or a mistake. And you led him right to us, I whispered. You are the mistake. He didn't answer. He just looked away, staring at the rain lashing against the glass. We drove for an hour, climbing the winding roads up into the mountains overlooking Seoul. The city lights spread out below us, a glittering ocean of electricity. It looked beautiful. It looked like a trap. The safe house was a brutalist concrete mansion perched on a cliff edge. It was modern, cold, and imposing. 10-foot walls topped with razor wire surrounded the perimeter. Armed guards in black tactical gear patrolled the gates. This is a prison, Malik whispered. It was the first thing he'd said in an hour. It's a castle, I lied, squeezing his hand. We're just visiting. The car stopped. The doors opened. We were ushered inside. The interior was vast and minimalist. White marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, abstract art that looked like bruises on the walls. It was spotless, sterile. It felt like a hospital for billionaires. Take them to the East Wing, Tae-os ordered a maid who appeared from nowhere. Get them food, warm clothes, anything they need. No, I said, planting my feet on the marble. We stay together. Simone. Tae-os turned to me, his patience fraying. I have to secure the perimeter. I have to make calls. You need to settle the boys. I am not letting them out of my sight, I hissed. Not in your house. Not with your people. He stared at me, his jaw tightening. Then he nodded once. Fine, East Wing, all of you. We walked through the silent halls. I noticed things. No photos. No personal touches. This wasn't a home. It was a holding cell. The room they gave us was bigger than our entire apartment in Incheon. 2 king-sized beds, a balcony overlooking the city, a bathroom with a tub deep enough to swim in. The boys stood in the center of the room, afraid to touch anything. They looked like refugees in a museum. Don't touch the walls, Micah whispered to Malik. You might get them dirty. My heart broke. Poverty had taught them to be small, to be invisible. Touch whatever you want, I said fiercely. Jump on the bed. Break a vase. I don't care. They didn't move. A knock at the door. Tae-os entered. He had taken off his jacket. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle and ink. A tattoo I didn't recognize, a snake eating its own tail, wrapped around his left wrist. He was holding a tray, not a servant. Him. Food, he said, setting it down on the low table. Steaming bowls of beef stew, rice, fresh vegetables. The smell filled the room, rich and savory. The boys' stomachs growled in unison. Eat, Tae-os said, his voice softer now. He crouched down, trying to get to their eye level. Malik stepped back, pulling Micah with him. He looked at Tae-os with pure, unfiltered suspicion. Is it poisoned? Malik asked. Tae-os flinched. It was a microscopic movement, a twitch near his eye, but I saw it. The accusation hit him harder than a fist. No, Tae-os said. It's just beef. Galbi Jim. It was my favorite when I was your age. We don't want your favorite, Malik said. We want ramyun. Malik, I warned gently. It's okay, Tae-os said. He looked at the boy, really looked at him. He saw the defiance. He saw the protective arm wrapped around his weaker brother. He saw himself. You're the older one, Tae-os said. By 2 minutes, Malik said. You protect him, Tae-os said. It wasn't a question. You take the hits for him. Malik didn't answer, but his chin went up a fraction of an inch. Good, Tae-os murmured. That's good. You'll need that. He stood up, the moment broken. He turned to me. I need to speak with you. Alone. I told you. Mama Jean is here. He cut me off. He nodded to my mother, who was already inspecting the windows, checking the locks. She won't let anyone in. Just in the hallway, Simone, please. I hesitated. Then I nodded. Mama, lock the door behind me. I stepped out into the corridor. The door clicked shut, the heavy deadbolt sliding home. It was just us. The silence was heavy, charged with 10 years of unsaid things. He looked at me, his eyes tracing the lines of my face, the exhaustion, the gray in my hair that hadn't been there before. You look tired, he said. I've been raising 2 children on $10 an hour while hiding from a mafia princess, I snapped. Exhaustion is my baseline. I didn't know, he said again. He reached out, his hand hovering near my arm, but he didn't touch me. He knew he lost that right. If I had known... What? I challenged him. What would you have done, Tae-os? Would you have claimed them? Brought them here to be raised as... what? Soldiers? Heirs? I would have protected them, he shouted. The echo bounced off the marble walls. I would have kept them safe. Like you kept me safe? I laughed, and it sounded wet, choked. You threw me to the wolves, Tae-os. You stood there and watched them drag me away. You called me a thief. I saved your life. He slammed his hand against the wall, inches from my head. I didn't flinch. I had faced worse things than his temper. My father, he hissed, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. My father was going to kill you that night. Not deport you. Kill you. He knew about us. He told me before the party. End it, or I will bury her in the foundation of the new casino. That's what he said. I stared at him. So I made you a thief, he said, his eyes burning with a desperate, twisted logic. Because a thief gets fired. A thief gets deported. A thief leaves the country and lives. A mistress disappears. He leaned in, his forehead resting against the wall, his breathing ragged. I broke you to save you, he whispered. I destroyed your reputation to save your life, and I have hated myself for it every single day for 10 years. I listened. I heard the pain in his voice. I heard the truth, and I didn't care. It doesn't matter, I said coldly. You don't get a medal for wrecking my life, Tae-os. You don't get to be the hero because you chose the lesser of 2 evils. You still chose evil. He pulled back, looking at me with devastation in his eyes. And now? I asked. What's the plan? We live in this glass cage until Ha-yoon gets bored? I'm going to fix it, he said. I'm the elder now. My father is dead. I run the syndicate. I can... You don't run anything, I cut him off. If you ran things, we wouldn't be hiding. Ha-yoon runs things. She has the politicians. She has the police. You just have the thugs. He opened his mouth to argue, but a sound stopped him. A chime, a soft, melodic chime from the elevator down the hall. Tae-os stiffened. His hand went to the gun tucked into the waistband of his trousers. Who is that? I whispered. You said no one gets in. The elevator doors slid open. A woman stepped out. She was wearing a white trench coat, pristine and sharp. Her heels clicked on the marble with a rhythm that sounded like a ticking clock. She carried a small, elegantly wrapped gift box in her hands. Baek Ha-yoon. She hadn't aged. If anything, she looked sharper, more refined. Her skin was luminous, her smile painted on with surgical precision. She wasn't alone. 2 men in suits followed her, not guards, lawyers. Tae-os, she said, her voice light, airy. Darling, you didn't tell me we had guests. Tae-os stepped in front of me, shielding me with his body. How did you get past the gate? The gate? She laughed. I pay the guards, Tae-os. Did you forget? I sign the checks for the security firm. She walked closer, her eyes sliding past him, locking onto me. Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes were dead. Simone, she said, the waitress, the thief, and now, the mother. She knew. Get out, Tae-os growled. He drew his gun. Get out of my house, Ha-woon. She didn't even look at the weapon. She just held up the gift box. Put the toy away, darling, she said. I'm just here to drop off a housewarming present. For the children. She placed the box on a side table. Open it, she said to me. Don't touch it, Tae-os ordered. Oh, it's not a bomb, Ha-yoon said, rolling her eyes. I'm not a barbarian. Go ahead, Simone. Open it. I stepped out from behind Tae-os. I felt drawn to the box like a moth to a flame. My hands shook as I pulled the ribbon. I lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in black velvet, were 2 objects. 2 inhalers. Pediatric inhalers. Brand new, but they weren't generic. They had names engraved on the metal canisters. Malik. Micah. And a note. I picked up the card. My vision blurred. Asthma can be so dangerous in the winter. The air in the mountains is thin. Make sure they breathe easy. I'd hate for them to suffocate in their sleep. I looked up at her. She was smiling. How? I whispered. How do you know about the asthma? I have their medical records, she said casually. I have their birth certificates. I have the fake ones you bought in Incheon, too. Sloppy work, Simone. She turned to Tae-os. You think you found them? She asked, her voice dripping with venom. I let you find them. I led you to the warehouse because I wanted them here. Why? Tae-os asked, his gun still raised, but his hand wavering. Because, Hyun said, stepping into the elevator, illegitimate heirs are messy when they're scattered. It's so much easier to clean up a mess when it's all in one pile. The elevator doors began to close. Enjoy the house, she said. The ventilation system is a bit old. Sometimes it stops working. The doors shut. We were alone. I looked at the inhalers. I looked at the vent in the ceiling. The air in the room suddenly felt very, very thin. She controls the air, I whispered. Tae-os, she controls the air. I ran back to the bedroom door and pounded on it. Mama, Mama, open the door! Don't let them breathe! Cover their faces! The war hadn't just started. We had already lost the first battle, and we were trapped in a glass castle with no air. Panic is not a scream. It is a vacuum. It sucks the sound out of the room, the spit out of your mouth, and the logic out of your brain. I stood in the hallway, staring at the closed elevator doors, the engraved inhalers heavy in my hand like grenades. The ventilation hummed above us, a low, rhythmic thrumming. Was it stopping, or was it pumping something in? Carbon monoxide? Nitrogen? Simone! Tae-os' voice cracked the paralysis. He grabbed my arm, spinning me around. His eyes were wide, the pupils blown black with adrenaline. We have to move. Now. The air, I choked out. She said... I heard her. He didn't waste time denying it. He didn't waste time comforting me. He pulled his gun, checked the chamber, and turned to the bedroom door where I had locked Mama and the boys. Mama Jean! I screamed, pounding on the wood. Open it! We have to go! The lock clicked. The door swung open. Mama Jean stood there, a lamp raised in her hand like a club. Behind her, the boys were huddled on the bed, their eyes darting from me to the gun in Tae-os' hand. Shoes! Tae-os barked. Put your shoes on! Don't take anything else. Is the bad lady coming back? Micah whispered. He was already rubbing his chest. A psychosomatic reaction? Or was the air already thinning? No, Tae-os said, kneeling to shove Micah's feet into his worn-out sneakers. His hands that had signed death warrants, were shaking as he tied the laces. We are going to the basement. The server room has an independent cooling system. Separate intake. She can't touch it. Basement? Malik snapped. You want to take us underground? That's where the rats are. That's where the oxygen is, Tae-os said, looking Malik dead in the eye. Do you want to breathe, or do you want to argue? Malik shut his mouth. He grabbed Micah's hand. We ran. The glass castle wasn't a home. It was a labyrinth designed by a paranoid architect. We bypassed the main staircase, too exposed, and took the service corridor. The lights flickered. Ha-eun was playing with the grid. Click. Darkness. Click. Blinding strobe. Keep your hand on the wall, I shouted to the boys, my voice sounding thin in the cavernous hallway. We reached a heavy steel door marked Authorized Personnel Only. Tae-os swiped his thumb against a biometric pad. Nothing. A red light blinked. She locked us out, he cursed. He holstered the gun and stepped back. Cover their ears. What? Cover their ears! I grabbed the boys and pulled their heads into my stomach. Mama Jean turned away. Tae-os raised his leg and kicked the door right next to the lock. Once, twice. The sound was like a cannon shot in the enclosed space. The steel groaned. On the third kick, the frame buckled. He shoved his shoulder into it and the door screamed open. Inside, he ordered. The room was freezing. It was filled with rows of black server towers, blinking blue and green lights in the darkness. The hum here was different, louder, industrial. The air smelled of ozone and cold metal. but it was fresh. "Sit," Tae-os pointed to the corner behind the main rack. "Stay low." He slammed the door shut and wedged a metal chair under the handle. Then he slid down the wall, his chest heaving. We sat in the blue gloom, shivering. The temperature was barely 50 degrees. "Here," I whispered, pulling my coat off and wrapping it around Micah. Mama Jean did the same for Malik. "She's trying to kill us," Malik said. His voice didn't tremble. It was flat, factual. He was 5 years old and he was discussing murder like it was the weather. The lady in the white coat. "She won't succeed," Tae-os said from the darkness. "You let her in," Malik challenged him. "Malik," I warned. "No," Tae-os said. "Let him speak." "You let her in," Malik repeated, staring at the man who was his father. "You have a big house and big walls and guns, and she just walked in. You're not strong." The insult hung in the air, heavier than the cold. Tae-os looked at his son. He didn't get angry. He looked devastated. "You're right," Tae-os whispered. "I wasn't strong enough, but I will be." Suddenly, a sound cut through the room. A whistle, a high-pitched, thin wheeze. I froze. Every mother of an asthmatic child knows that sound. It is the sound of a closing throat. Micah. He was clutching his chest, his small mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. His eyes were wide with panic. "Micah!" I scrambled over to him. "Breathe, baby. Look at me. Slow breaths." "Can't," he gasped. "Can't get air." It was the cold, the shock, the dust in the server room. "Inhaler," I snapped. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the old one, the one we'd brought from Incheon. I shook it. It felt light, too light. "Please," I whispered, praying to the plastic canister. "Please have one left." I put it to Micah's lips. "Deep breath, baby. On 3. 1, 2, 3. I pressed the canister. Hiss. A weak puff of mist. Micah inhaled greedily, his small chest heaving. He held it, then exhaled. We waited. The wheezing didn't stop. It got tighter. "It's empty," I whispered. The horror washed over me cold and absolute. That was the last one. "The box," Tae-os said, scrambling up. "The ones she gave us." "She wants them dead," I screamed. "I'm not giving him anything from that witch." "We don't have a choice." Tae-os grabbed the velvet box from where I'd dropped it on the floor. He pulled out the inhaler engraved with Micah. He shook it. It made a sound. There was liquid inside. "It's full," he said. "It could be poison," Mama Jean said, her voice shaking. "Cyanide. Anything." Micah coughed. A wet, hacking sound that meant his airways were collapsing. His lips were turning a faint shade of blue in the server lights. "He's dying," Tae-os said. His voice broke. "Simone, look at him. He is suffocating." I looked at my son. I looked at the man who had destroyed me. "If this kills him," I whispered, grabbing Tae-os' wrist, my nails digging into his skin until I felt blood. "I will cut your heart out with my teeth." "If this kills him," Tae-os said, his eyes wet, "I will let you." He knelt in front of Micah. "Okay, little man," Tae-os said softly. His hands were huge around the tiny canister. "I need you to be brave. I need you to trust me." Micah looked at him. He was terrified, gasping, tears streaming down his face. But he nodded. Tae-os put the inhaler to Micah's lips. 1, 2, 3. Hiss. A strong, full burst. Micah inhaled. Silence. I stopped breathing. Mama Jean stopped praying. Tae-os stayed frozen, his hand still on Micah's shoulder. 1 second, 2 seconds. Micah exhaled, and then he took a breath. A clear, deep breath. The wheezing faded. The color started to return to his lips. "Is it okay?" Micah whispered. I collapsed back against the server rack, sobbing. It was just albuterol. It was just medicine. And that was the cruelty of Baek Ha-eun. She hadn't poisoned the inhaler. She had given us the cure. She wanted us to know that she held the power of life and death in her manicured hands. She wanted us to be grateful to the executioner. "It's okay," Tae-os whispered. He dropped his forehead onto Micah's small shoulder. I saw his shoulders shaking. The crime lord, the king of Seoul. weeping in the dark because he had saved his son with his enemy's mercy. We stayed in the server room for 6 hours. I watched Tae-os. He sat by the door, gun in hand, watching the boys sleep on a bed made of our coats. "Why didn't you marry her?" I asked softly. The boys were asleep. Mama Jean was dozing. Tae-os didn't look at me. "I tried. After the hotel, after I kicked you out, I tried to be the dutiful son. We were engaged for 2 years. What happened?" "I couldn't touch her," he said. He looked at his hand, the hand that had held the inhaler. "Every time I got close to her, I saw you in that alley, bleeding, screaming my name." He turned to me. His face was a map of regret. "I called off the wedding 3 days before the date. It cost the family $1 billion in broken contracts. My father beat me until I couldn't walk, but I didn't care." "Is that why she hates you?" I asked. "She doesn't hate me," Tae-os said darkly. "She thinks she owns me. She thinks I'm an unruly pet that needs to be broken, and now she knows my weakness." He looked at the sleeping twins. "She knows I have a heart," he whispered, "and she's going to carve it out." Morning came with a sudden silence. The server fans slowed down. The lights overhead flickered to a steady white. "The power is back," Tae-os said. He stood up, stiff and alert. "She's done playing." He opened the door. The hallway was empty. We walked back up to the main house, moving like a SWAT team. The house was silent. Too silent. "Where is everyone?" Mama Jean asked, looking around the pristine kitchen. No cooks, no maids, no guards. "Gone," Tae-os said, looking out the window at the empty guard booth at the gate. She recalled them. "All of them?" "They were never loyal to me," Tae-os said. "They were loyal to the money, and Ha-eun controls the accounts." We were alone, 4 people in a glass fortress on a cliff with no staff, no security, and a gate that wouldn't open. Then the phone on the kitchen wall rang, an old-fashioned landline. Tae-os stared at it. "Don't answer it," I said. "I have to." He picked it up. He put it on speaker. "Tae-os," a voice rasped. It wasn't Ha-eun. It was older, drier, like parchment rubbing together. "Elder Choi," Tae-os said, standing at attention out of habit. "The council has convened," the voice said. "We have reviewed the evidence presented by Miss Beck." "Evidence?" Tae-os asked. "She says you are harboring a liability, a loose end from the past, a thief who stole family property." "She is the mother of my sons," Tae-os said, his voice hard. "They are your grandsons, Elder." "Bastards," the Elder corrected. "Unverified, unclean." I felt sick. "We have called a vote of confidence," the Elder continued. "Tonight, midnight, if you cannot prove that you put the family above your personal sins, you will be removed." "Removed?" Tae-os asked. "Executed," the voice said simply. "Order 66, a clean slate." "What do I have to do?" Tae-os asked. He looked at me. His eyes were dead. "Bring us the thief," the Elder said, "and bring us the children." "Why?" "So we can verify the bloodline," the Elder said. "If they are Kangs, they belong to the family. If they are not, they will be disposed of." "And the mother?" "The mother is a distraction," the Elder said. "Bring her head, Tae-os. Prove your loyalty, or we will send the Reapers to collect all 4 of you." Click. The line went dead. Tae-os hung up the phone. He stood there for a long time, his back to us. "Tae-os?" I whispered. He turned around. He walked over to the knife block on the counter. He pulled out a long, serrated chef's knife. The steel caught the morning sun. "Get in the car," he said. "What?" "The garage is on a separate circuit. We can get the SUV out." "Where are we going?" I asked, backing away, pulling the boys behind me. "You heard him. He wants my head." Tae-os looked at the knife. Then he looked at me. "I know what he wants," he said, "and I know what I have to do." He walked toward me. "Tae-os, stop!" I screamed. He didn't stop. He walked right past me, grabbed a heavy duffel bag from the pantry, and slashed the straps. "We are going to the council," he said, "and we are going to give them exactly what they asked for." He turned to me, and the look in his eyes wasn't sanity. It was the look of a man who had decided to burn down the world. "Do you trust me?" he asked. "No," I said. Good, he said. Keep hating me. It'll make this easier. He threw the knife into the bag. Let's go meet the executioners. We didn't go to a warehouse. We didn't go to a basement. We went to a tea house in Bukchon Hanak village. It was one of those preserved traditional neighborhoods where tourists rent hanboks and take selfies, oblivious to the fact that the real power in Seoul doesn't live in the glass skyscrapers of Gangnam. It lives here, behind wood gates that cost more than my life. Tae-os parked the SUV in a narrow alley. The rain had stopped, leaving the cobblestones slick and black. Listen to me, Tae-os said, turning to the back seat. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the boys. We are going into a room with bad men, he said. His voice was calm, terrifyingly steady. They are going to look at you. They are going to judge you. Do not cry. Do not hide behind your mother. You stand straight. You look them in the eye. Do you understand? Are they monsters? Micah whispered, clutching his inhaler like a talisman. Yes, Tae-os said, but you are monsters too. You are my monsters, and monsters don't fear other monsters. He looked at me then. Don't speak unless they address you. If you speak out of turn, they will kill you right there. No trial, no hesitation. I thought you were the boss, I said, my voice thin. I am the king, Tae-os said, opening his door. But they are the history books, and history hates to be rewritten. We walked to the gate. 4 men in dark suits bowed to Tae-os. They patted him down. They took the gun from his waistband. They reached for the duffel bag. No, Tae-os said. Sir, weapons are... It is a gift for the council. Tae-os lied smoothly. Open it if you want, but if you disturb the arrangement, I will take your hand. The guard hesitated, then stepped back. He let us pass. The courtyard was silent. A single pine tree, twisted and ancient, stood in the center of a raked gravel garden. The silence was heavy. It pressed against my eardrums. We took off our shoes. We entered the main room. The smell hit me first. Incense, old paper, and something metallic, like a coin tasted on the tongue. 5 men sat on floor cushions arranged in a semicircle. They were old. Their skin was like parchment, their eyes buried in wrinkles. They wore traditional robes, but I saw the Rolexes peeking out from the sleeves. In the center sat Elder Choi, the man on the phone. You brought guests, Choi rasped. He didn't look at me. He looked at the boys. I brought heirs, Tae-os said. He didn't bow. He stood in the center of the room, blocking us with his body. He dropped the heavy duffel bag on the floor with a thud. Heirs, another elder scoffed. Mongrels. The mother is a foreigner, a servant. The mother is irrelevant, Tae-os said, cold, sharp. I flinched, even knowing it was a performance, the word cut. Irrelevant. The blood is what matters, Tae-os continued. Look at them. He stepped aside. Malik, Micah, step forward. I wanted to grab them. I wanted to scream. But the guards by the door had their hands inside their jackets. One wrong move, and my children would be orphans. Malik stepped forward. He held Micah's hand. He looked at the 5 old men. He didn't smile. He didn't cower. He glared. Which one is the older? Elder Choi asked. I am, Malik said. Do you know who we are, boy? You're the bad men, Malik said. The room went dead silent. A drop of sweat rolled down my spine. Then Elder Choi laughed. It was a dry, hacking sound. He has the temper. That is Kang blood, certainly. The blood is diluted, the second elder spat. They are liabilities, Tae-os. Ha-yun has presented us with a file. The mother is a loose end. She is a vulnerability you cannot afford. Ha-yun is a partner, Tae-os said, not a Kang. She is the future you promised us. Choi slammed his hand on the low table. You broke the engagement. You insulted her family. And now you bring these bastards into our house? We demanded the mother's head, Tae-os. Did you bring it? Tae-os looked at the duffel bag. I brought you a choice, he said. He knelt and unzipped the bag. The elders leaned forward, expecting a severed head, expecting my head. Tae-os pulled out the chef's knife. The guards drew their guns. The slide-racking sound echoed like thunder. "Put the weapon down, Tae-os!" Choi shouted. Tae-os didn't attack them. He didn't attack me. He slammed the knife into the wooden floor. Thwack! It quivered there, burying itself 3 inches deep into the centuries-old teak. "You want blood?" Tae-os asked quietly. "I will give you blood." He grabbed the blade with his bare right hand. He wrapped his fingers around the serrated steel. "No!" I screamed. He squeezed. I heard the skin tear. I saw the blood well up between his fingers, dark and fast, dripping down the metal, staining the pristine wood. He didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He stared at Elder Choi, his eyes burning with a terrifying, calm madness. "These boys are my blood," Tae-os said, his voice low and dangerous. "They are the only legacy I have. If you touch them, if you harm one hair on their heads, I will not fight you. I will not start a war." He squeezed harder. Blood poured onto the floor. "I will burn the accounts," he whispered. "I have the encryption keys to the Cayman holdings. I have the blackmail files on the Prime Minister. I have the routes for the shipping lines. If my sons die, the Kang Empire dies. I will delete it all. I will leave you with nothing but ash and old robes." The elders stared at him. They stared at the blood pooling around the knife. This was the obsession engine at work. He wasn't negotiating with money. He was negotiating with mutual destruction. "You would destroy your father's work?" Choi asked, his voice trembling with disbelief. "My father is dead," Tae-os said. "I am the father now." He let go of the knife. His hand was a ruin, deep, jagged cuts across the palm and fingers. He didn't look at it. "Accept them," Tae-os commanded. "Accept them, and I will triple the profits in 2 years. I will expand into the tech sector. I will give you the world." "And if we refuse?" "Then kill us all now," Tae-os said, "because I will not leave here without them." Silence. The boys were staring at their father's bleeding hand. Micah was crying silently. Malik looked fascinated, horrified, but fascinated. He was seeing power in its rawest form. Elder Choi looked at the other men. They exchanged subtle nods. Money. It always came down to money. Tae-os was the golden goose, even if he was a mad dog. "The boys stay," Choi said finally. "We will acknowledge them. We will train them." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "But," Choi raised a finger, "the mother." My heart stopped. "She is a weakness," Choi said. "She cannot be allowed to influence them. She cannot raise them." "She stays," Tae-os said. "No," a new voice said. The shoji screen at the back of the room slid open. Baek Ha-eun stepped out. She wasn't wearing the trench coat anymore. She was wearing a traditional hanbok, pale blue like ice. She looked like a queen. "The boys are Kang's," she said, walking to sit beside Elder Choi. "They belong to the family, which means they need a mother who understands the family." She looked at me. "I will raise them," she said. "Over my dead body," I snarled, stepping forward. The guard put a gun to my temple. The cold metal pressed against my skin. "That can be arranged," Ha-eun said pleasantly. "Stop," Tae-os said. He was wrapping a handkerchief around his bleeding hand. "Ha-eun, you don't want children. You hate them." "I hate your children," she corrected. "But I love power, and if they are the heirs, then I will be the one to mold them. I will make them strong. Unlike you, Tae-os, who is soft enough to bleed for a waitress." She turned to the elders. "The compromise is simple," she said. "Tae-os keeps his position. The boys are accepted as heirs. But the mother—" She pointed a manicured finger at me. "The mother gives up her rights. Legally, completely. She can stay in the house as a nanny, a servant. But on paper, they are mine. And if she tries to take them, if she tries to run—" She looked at the guard holding the gun to my head. "Then she is a kidnapper, and we handle kidnappers appropriately." Tae-os looked at me. His face was pale from blood loss. He looked defeated. "Tae-os," I whispered, "don't do it. Don't let her take them." "It's the only way to keep you alive," he said. His voice was dead. He looked at Choi. Agreed, Tae-os said. No, I screamed. I tried to run to Malik, but the guard grabbed my hair and yanked me back. Sign the papers, Ha-eun said, pulling a document from her sleeve. She slid it across the floor to Tae-os. He picked up a pen with his bloody hand. He didn't even read it. He signed. He signed my children away to the woman who wanted to kill them. Done, Choi said. The meeting is adjourned. Ha-eun stood up. She walked over to the boys. Hello, Malik. Hello, Micah, she said, her voice sweet as poison. I'm your new mother. Malik spit on her shoe. Ha-eun didn't flinch. She just smiled. A terrible, knowing smile. We'll have to work on that, she said. Tae-os grabbed me before I could attack her. He dragged me out of the room, his bloody hand staining my coat. I hate you, I sobbed, thrashing against him as we stumbled back into the courtyard. I hate you! You sold them! I bought them time, he hissed, shoving me toward the car. Now get in, before I change my mind and let them kill you. We left the tea house. I looked back through the rear window. Ha-eun was standing at the gate watching us leave. She waved. I looked at my sons. They were safe. They were alive. But they weren't mine anymore. Hell isn't fire and brimstone. It's a maid's uniform. It was gray polyester, 2 sizes too small, stiff with starch that chafed my neck raw. It smelled of industrial detergent and humiliation. I had been the nanny for 3 months. Servant, Ha-eun corrected me every morning. Nannies have degrees, Simone. You have a criminal record. I lived in the servants' quarters in the basement, a windowless box next to the boiler room. Mama Jean was allowed to stay in the guest cottage, but only because Tae-os insisted she was too old to be a threat. He was wrong. Mama Jean was sharpening knives in her mind every single day. But I was right there, in the house, watching the woman who wanted to kill my children play dress-up with them. The transformation was subtle at first. Then it was a landslide. First, the clothes. The superhero t-shirts and worn-out sneakers vanished, replaced by bespoke suits, stiff collars, and leather shoes that gave them blisters. Then, the names. Malik became Minjun. Micah became Min-seok. Say your name, Ha-eun would command at breakfast, holding a spoon of honey-sweetened porridge just out of reach. Malik, my son would whisper, his eyes darting to me where I stood by the wall, holding a silver pitcher of water. No breakfast for Malik, Ha-eun would sing-song, dumping the porridge into the trash. Minjun is hungry. Malik is a ghost. I would grip the pitcher until the metal warped. I would look at Tae-os, sitting at the head of the table, reading his tablet, pretending he didn't hear his son's stomach growl. Wait, his eyes would tell me when he briefly glanced up. Wait. How long? Until they starved? Until they forgot who they were? The night of the gala was the breaking point. It was the official introduction. The K-Group syndicate was rebranding as a legitimate global conglomerate, and Tae-os needed to present a stable, family-oriented front. Ha-eun had organized a dinner for 50 of the most powerful people in Asia, politicians, tech moguls, and the surviving elders. You will serve the main course, Ha-eun told me in the kitchen. She was checking her reflection in a spoon. She looked flawless. I want them to see you. Why? I asked, arranging truffle shavings on the beef. Because I want them to know that I won, she whispered. And I want you to know your place. You are not the mother. You are the help. The dining room was a sea of crystals and orchids. The air smelled of expensive wine and old money. Tae-os sat at the head, looking like a statue carved from grief. He hadn't touched me, spoken to me, or looked me in the eye for 90 days. He was keeping his bargain. The boys sat on either side of Ha-eun. They looked terrified. Their hair was gelled back, hard as helmets. They sat stiffly, afraid to move. I walked out with the heavy silver platter. The heat of the roast beef rose into my face. Ah, the children, a senator boomed, raising his glass. Finally, the Kang line is secure. They look just like you, Tae-os. Thank you, Ha-eun beamed, placing a possessive hand on Malik's shoulder. She dug her nails in. I saw him flinch. Minjun is excelling at his piano lessons. Aren't you, darling? Malik stared at his plate. I hate piano. The table went silent. Ha-eun's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went flat. He's shy. Speak up, Minjun. In Korean, please. English is for the staff. My name is Malik, he said. Loudly. I froze. Don't do it, baby, I begged silently. Just eat the food. And I don't like you, Malik continued, looking directly at the senator. She locks us in the closet when we cry. The silence shattered. Forks dropped. The senator choked on his wine. Ha-eun stood up. She picked up her glass of red wine. She poured it over Malik's head. The dark liquid drenched his white suit, running down his face like blood. Malik gasped, shock paralyzing him. Clumsy, Ha-eun hissed. Look what you did. You spilled the wine. He didn't. Micah started to cry. Quiet, Min-seok, Ha-eun snapped. Or you're next. She turned to me. Clean him up, and then take him to the quiet room. He needs to think about his manners. I dropped the platter. The crash was deafening. Roast beef and silver hit the floor. Grease splattered onto the silk shoes of the guests. No, I said. Excuse me? Ha-eun asked. I said no. I walked over to Malik. I used my apron, my servant's apron, to wipe the wine from his eyes. He is a child. You don't humiliate a child. Tae-os, Ha-eun said. She didn't look at me. She looked at him. Your servant is malfunctioning. Tae-os stood up. He looked at the room full of powerful witnesses. He looked at the elders watching from the end of the table. He looked at me, wiping Malik's face. If he sided with me, the deal was void. The protection was gone. The elders would order the hit. If he sided with her, he lost his soul. Tae-os walked over to us. He loomed over me. Stand down, Simone, he said. His voice was ice. She poured wine on him, Tae-os. Look at him. I said stand down. He grabbed my arm. Hard. He yanked me away from Malik. Take the boy to his room, Tae-os ordered the guards. No, Mama, Malik screamed as they dragged him away. He was kicking, reaching for me. Mama! I lunged for him. Tae-os backhanded me. It wasn't a play act slap. It was a strike. His knuckles connected with my cheekbone. The force knocked me to the floor, my head cracked against the marble. The room gasped. I lay there, tasting copper in my mouth. My ear was ringing. I looked up at him. Tae-os was staring at his hand. His chest was heaving. For a second, I saw the horror in his eyes. He had hit me. To save me from the elders, he had to treat me like a servant who disobeyed. Get her out of here, Tae-os said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. Lock her in her quarters. 2 guards hauled me up. I didn't fight. I was too stunned. The physical pain was nothing. The look in Malik's eyes as he was dragged away, that was the knife in my heart. He saw his father hit his mother. They threw me into the basement room and locked the door. I sat on the cot in the dark, touching my swelling cheek. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I was in the cold, hard place where murder is planned. I waited. 1 hour, 2 hours. The door clicked. I expected a guard, or Ha-eun coming to gloat. It was Tae-os. He slipped inside and locked the door behind him. He was still wearing his suit, but he had ripped the tie off. He looked like a man who was bleeding to death internally. He rushed to me. He fell to his knees. He reached for my face. Don't touch me, I whispered. I had to, he choked out. The elder, he was watching. If I showed weakness? You hit me, Tae-os. I know. He grabbed my hands. He pressed them against his forehead. He was shaking violently. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They took Malik. Where is he? He's in his room. He's safe. I checked on him. I bribed the guard to give him food. This isn't working, I said. Your plan, you're buying time. It's killing us. She is destroying their minds, and you are destroying my body. I'm almost ready, Tae-os whispered. 2 more days. The encryption on the Cayman accounts. I need a physical key. It's in the bank vault. I'm getting it on Monday. Once I have it, I can drain the funds. I can bankrupt the elders. Then we run. 2 days? I laughed bitterly. We won't survive 2 days. We have to. Suddenly, the intercom on the wall buzzed. Click. Tae-os? Ha-eun's voice filled the small room. We froze. I know you're in there, she said. She sounded amused. I have cameras in the hallway, darling. Did you think I didn't? Tae-os stared at the speaker. Get out of there, Ha-eun said. Come upstairs, we have a problem. What did you do? Tae-os shouted at the wall. Me? Nothing. But your daughter-in-law, she's quite resourceful. Daughter-in-law? Mama Jean, I whispered. The blood drained from my face. Come up to the roof, Ha-eun said, and bring the maid. She should see this. We ran. We bolted up the stairs, past the kitchen, past the silent bedrooms, up the spiral staircase to the roof terrace. The wind was howling. The city lights were a blurred, dizzying drop below. Ha-eun stood near the edge. She was holding a glass of wine. 2 guards were holding Mama Jean. My mother was bruised. Her lip was split, but she was standing tall, her eyes blazing with defiance. She tried to poison me, Ha-eun said, gesturing to a tea set on the patio table. Rat poison in my herbal tea. Very cliché, Mama Jean, but effective. I should have used more, Mama Jean spat. You see? Ha-eun sighed. I try to be a gracious host, but you people, you have violence in your DNA. She looked at Tae-os. The elders are upset about the dinner, Tae-os, the boys' outburst, the maid's interference, and now, an assassination attempt by the grandmother. She took a sip of wine. They want a sacrifice to restore order. Let her go, Tae-os said, stepping forward. She's an old woman. She's a liability, Ha-eun said, and I'm tired of liabilities. She nodded to the guards. They pushed Mama Jean toward the ledge. No! I screamed, lunging forward. Tae-os grabbed me, holding me back. Don't look, Tae-os whispered into my ear. Simone, don't look. Mama, Mama Jean looked at me. She smiled, a sad, tired smile. Take care of the boys, baby, she said. Don't let them break. Ha-eun, don't, Tae-os shouted. I will sign anything. I will give you the vault key. Just let her go. The vault key? Ha-eun laughed. Oh, Tae-os, I already emptied the vault this morning. Did you think I didn't know about your little exit strategy? Tae-os went still. You have nothing, Ha-eun said. You have no leverage. You have no money. You have only what I allow you to keep. She snapped her fingers. The guards shoved. Mama Jean didn't scream. She just fell. She fell backward into the black void of the Seoul night. I watched her disappear. I heard the silence. Then, seconds later, a distant, wet thud on the concrete patio 5 stories down. My knees gave out. I hit the deck. The scream tore out of my throat, raw and animalistic. It wasn't human. It was the sound of a soul ripping in half. Clean up the mess downstairs, Ha-eun said to the guards. She finished her wine. She walked over to Tae-os, who was staring at the ledge, paralyzed by the absolute destruction of his plan. Now, Ha-eun whispered, patting his cheek, we are going to be a happy family, or the next time, it will be Min-seok who learns how to fly. Grief is not a feeling, it is a location. I was living in a country called After Mama. It was a dark, airless place. They didn't let me bury her. Ha-eun called it an unfortunate accident involving a senile trespasser. The body was cremated before the police even filed a report. No service, no marker. Just a cloud of gray smoke rising from the city crematorium, drifting east toward the ocean. I lay on the cot in the basement. I hadn't eaten in 3 days. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the sound of that wet thud over and over. Thud. 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 The door opened. Tae-os entered. He looked like a corpse walking. His skin was gray. His eyes were sunk deep into bruised sockets. The hand he had cut on the knife was wrapped in dirty bandages. He hadn't changed them. The infection was setting in. I could smell it, sweet and rotting like the house itself. Get up, he said. His voice was a rasp. I didn't move. Let me die, Tae-os. You let her kill my mother. Let her finish the job. If you die, he said, kneeling beside the cot, then Malik and Micah belong to her forever. Is that what Mama Jean died for? The name was a slap. I sat up, slow and painful. I looked at him with pure hatred. You failed, I whispered. Your plan, your money, your leverage. You failed. Yes, he admitted. He didn't flinch from the accusation. I tried to play by their rules. I tried to buy my way out. I thought if I kept the money, I could give the boys a future. He pulled a silver lighter from his pocket. He flicked the lid open and closed. Clink, clink. I was wrong, he said. You can't buy cancer out of a body, Simone. You have to cut it out. You have to burn it. What are you talking about? Tonight is the succession ceremony, Tae-os said. The elders are gathering at the ancestral hall in the mountains. The archive is there, every deed, every blackmail tape, every ledger from 50 years of crime. It's all paper and microfilm, highly flammable. So? Ha-eun is bringing the boys. She wants them to be anointed by the elders, to sign the blood oath. Tae-os looked at the lighter flame, blue and steady. I'm going to lock the doors, he whispered, and I'm going to burn it down, with them inside. I stared at him. The elders, and Ha-eun, and me. The silence stretched, heavy and cold. You? I asked. The doors lock from the inside, he said simply. Someone has to hold the bar. Someone has to make sure they don't get out before the roof collapses. He looked at me. There was no fear in his eyes, only a terrible, peaceful resolve. I am the Kerosene King, he said, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. I built this empire on scorched earth. It's only fitting I die on it. You can't, I said. My voice shook. Not because I loved him. I didn't know if I could love him anymore, but because the boys needed a father, not a martyr. I have to, he said. It's the only way to break the cycle. If I live, the surviving factions will hunt us forever. If I die with the elders, the head is cut off. The snake dies. You disappear. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a map, hand-drawn, shaky lines. There is a service tunnel under the ancestral hall. It leads to the river. A boat is waiting. The keys are under the seat. Take the boys. Go to Thailand. Don't stop. Don't look back. He pressed the map into my hand. His fingers were hot, feverish. I need you to be ready, he said. When the fire starts, the confusion will be absolute. You have 3 minutes to grab them and run. Tae-os, don't, he cut me off. Don't forgive me. I don't want forgiveness. I want them to live. He stood up. He looked at me one last time, memorizing my face. I loved you, he said. In the alley, in the warehouse, in this hell. I always loved you. He turned and walked out. The ancestral hall was a wooden temple hidden in a valley of pine trees. It was beautiful and ancient, smelling of cedar and resin. It was a tinderbox. I was dressed in a traditional hanbok, playing the part of the silent servant. I stood in the shadows of the great hall, watching. The 5 elders sat on a raised dais. Ha-eun stood before them, wearing white silk. She looked like a goddess of death. Malik and Micah knelt on cushions in front of her. They looked tiny in the vast room. Their heads were bowed. Tae-os stood to the side. He was holding a ceremonial torch. It was part of the ritual, lighting the incense for the ancestors. But I saw his eyes. He wasn't looking at the incense. He was looking at the curtains, the heavy, oil-soaked tapestries that lined the walls. Tonight, Elder Choi intoned, his voice echoing off the timber beams, we bind the new generation to the old. We mix the blood. He held out a silver bowl. Cut the hand, Ha-eun ordered. A guard stepped forward with a knife. He grabbed Malik's hand. No, Malik cried, pulling back. No, I don't want to. Hold him, Ha-eun snapped. The guard twisted Malik's arm. Malik screamed. That was the signal. Tae-os didn't light the incense. He threw the torch. It tumbled through the air, end over end, a spinning wheel of fire. It hit the tapestries. Whoosh! The oil caught instantly. A wall of flame roared up the side of the hall, turning the silk into a curtain of fire. Run! Tae-os screamed. He didn't run for the door. He ran for the guards. He tackled the man holding Malik, driving a knife into his neck. He spun and shot the second guard with a gun he had pulled from nowhere. Simone! He roared. Now! Pandemonium. The elders were screaming, scrambling off the dais as the smoke billowed down, thick and black. The fire alarm, cut by Tae-os, was silent. The only sound was the roar of the inferno and the screams of dying men. I sprinted from the shadows. I grabbed Micah. I grabbed Malik. Mama! Micah sobbed, clinging to my leg. Run! I dragged them toward the side door, the one that led to the service tunnel. Stop them! Ha-eun shrieked. She wasn't running. She was standing in the center of the chaos, her white dress turning gray with ash. She pointed a gun at us. "You're not leaving!" she screamed. She fired. The bullet splintered the wood frame next to my head. I shoved the boys into the tunnel entrance. Go! Go down the stairs! Don't stop! I turned back. Ha-eun was aiming again. She was aiming at Malik's retreating back. She was going to kill him. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I launched myself at her. I hit her with the force of 10 years of hatred. We crashed to the floor. The gun skittered away. We rolled in the ash and the heat. She clawed at my face. I punched hers. I felt her nose break under my fist. It felt good. It felt like justice. "You filth!" she screamed, spitting blood. She grabbed a handful of burning silk from the floor and shoved it into my face. I screamed as the heat seared my cheek. I kicked her off. I scrambled for the gun. I grabbed it. I pointed it at her. "Die!" I whispered. "Simone!" Tae-os' voice cut through the roar. I looked up. The roof was groaning. A massive timber beam wreathed in flame was cracking directly above us. Tae-os was holding the main double doors shut. The elders were pounding on them from the inside, screaming to be let out. He had barred it with his own body. "Go!" he shouted at me. "The roof is coming down. Get them out!" "Tae-os!" I screamed. "Come with us!" "I can't!" he yelled. "If I let go, they get out. Go!" He looked at Ha-eun, who was scrambling to her feet, looking for a way out. Tae-os let go of the door with one hand and grabbed Ha-eun by her hair. She shrieked, "Let me go! We're going to hell together, Ha-eun!" Tae-os snarled. He dragged her back toward the center of the room, back toward the falling fire. "Simone, go!" I looked at him. The man I hated, the man I loved, the father of my children. He was burning, his jacket was smoking, but he was smiling at me. "Tell them!" he shouted, his voice cracking over the roar of the flames. "Tell them I chose them!" The main beam snapped. It fell in slow motion, 1,000 pounds of burning oak. It crashed down between us. A wall of fire separated me from him. I heard Ha-eun scream one last time. Then I heard nothing but the roar. I turned and ran. I scrambled into the tunnel. I found the boys huddled at the bottom of the stairs, coughing in the smoke. "Where's Dad?" Malik asked, his face streaked with soot. I couldn't say it. "He's fighting the dragon. Come on." We ran through the dark, damp tunnel. We burst out into the cool night air by the riverbank. The boat was there, just like he said. We jumped in. I fumbled for the keys. The engine roared to life. I steered us out into the dark water. Behind us, up on the hill, the ancestral hall was a torch against the night sky. It burned orange and violent. "Is he coming?" Micah asked, looking back at the fire. "Is he coming, Mama?" I watched the roof collapse. A shower of sparks shot up into the stars. "No, baby," I whispered, tears cutting tracks through the ash on my face. "He's not coming." We sped away into the darkness. But the story wasn't over, because as I steered the boat toward the sea, I felt a vibration in my pocket. My phone, the burner phone Tae-os had given me. It buzzed. One text message, unknown number. "I'm not dead yet." I stared at the screen, and then I looked back at the fire. Someone was walking out of the inferno. We didn't go to Thailand. We went to an island off the coast of Vietnam that didn't have a name on Google Maps. Tae-os had bought it 6 years ago through a shell company. It was a rock with a jungle and a generator. No staff, no luxury. Just a concrete bunker disguised as a fisherman's hut. We waited there for 3 weeks. Waiting is a physical sickness. It's a fever that spikes every time the wind rattles the shutters. Malik and Micah stopped asking if he was coming. They sat on the rocky beach, throwing stones into the gray water, their faces hard and closed off. They were 6 years old, but they had the eyes of soldiers who had seen the front lines. "He's dead," Malik said one night, stabbing his fork into a can of Spam. "He burned up. I saw it." "He's not dead," I said, though I didn't believe it. The text message had been 3 weeks ago. Since then, silence. "If he comes back," Micah whispered, "will he be a ghost?" "Eat your food," I said, my voice cracking. I spent the nights pacing the perimeter of the jungle, holding the gun I had stolen from Ha-un. I shot at shadows. I screamed at the ocean. I mourned my mother, whose ashes were lost in a pit of traitorous fire in Korea, while I hid in paradise like a coward. On the 22nd night, the boat came. It wasn't a yacht. It was a rusted trawler, chugging black smoke. It cut the engine a mile out and lowered a small dinghy. I woke the boys. Get in the bunker. Lock the door. Do not open it unless you hear my voice and the code word. What's the code word? Malik asked, gripping a sharpened stick he'd made. Mama Jean, I said. They ran. I walked down to the beach, the gun heavy in my hand. The moon was full, casting a white, merciless light on the sand. The dinghy scraped against the shore. A figure stepped out. He stumbled. He fell to his knees in the surf. He tried to stand and failed. I didn't run to him. I raised the gun. Identify yourself, I screamed over the sound of the waves. The figure lifted its head. It was wearing a hood, a thick, dark cloak. Simone, the voice rasped. It sounded like tectonic plates grinding together, broken, ruined. I lowered the gun. Tae-os? He didn't answer. He just collapsed onto the wet sand. I ran. I dropped the gun and fell beside him. I rolled him over, and then I recoiled. I couldn't help it. The instinct was primal. The left side of his face was gone. It was a map of melted wax. The ear was a nub. The eyelid was gone, leaving the eye permanently open, staring wildly. The skin was a patchwork of red, angry grafts and charred flesh that hadn't healed. His lips were pulled back in a permanent rictus snarl on one side. He wasn't the handsome prince. He wasn't the CEO. He was a monster. He saw my reaction. He saw the flinch. He turned his head away, burying the ruined side in the sand. Don't look, he wheezed. I told you, don't look. You idiot, I sobbed, grabbing his shoulders and hauling him up. He was lighter. He had lost 30 pounds. You stupid, stubborn idiot. I fixed it, he gasped. The elders, Ha-un, dust. I know. The boys? Safe. They're safe. I dragged him up the beach. It took everything I had. He passed out halfway to the hut. I had to leave him in the sand to get the wheelbarrow we used for firewood. I carted him up like a sack of cement. I didn't let the boys see him for a week. I spent those 7 days changing his dressings. I learned the anatomy of a burn. I learned that skin weeps. I learned that pain has a smell. He wouldn't look at me. He kept his face turned to the wall. He refused to speak. Drink this, I'd say, holding a cup of water to his cracked lips. He would drink, then turn away. Why did you come? He asked on the 5th day. His voice was stronger, but the damage to his throat was permanent. He would always sound like he was speaking through smoke. Because you texted me. I shouldn't have, he said. I should have let you think I died. You shouldn't have to look at this. I'm looking at the man who saved my children, I said. I'm a monster, Simone. Look at me. He turned his head violently, forcing me to stare at the scars. No one can love this. No one can live with this. I reached out. My hand trembled, but I didn't pull back. I touched the ruined skin of his cheek. It felt hard, like leather. You're right, I whispered. It's ugly. It's terrifying. He flinched, preparing for the rejection. But it's mine, I said. Every scar, every burn. You bought them for us. You paid the bill. I leaned in and kissed the good side of his mouth. Then, slowly, I kissed the burned side. He broke. The Kerosene King, the murderer of elders, shattered into 1,000 pieces. He wept, his body shaking with racking sobs that tore at his healing skin. I held him until he passed out from exhaustion. The next day, I brought the boys. Don't scream, I warned them outside the door. He looks different. He looks like he fought a dragon and got bit. Is he scary? Micah asked. Yes, I said. But he's your father. We walked in. Tae-os was sitting up, wearing a mask he had fashioned out of bandages. He was trying to hide. Malik walked right up to the bed. He stared at the bandages. Did you kill the bad lady? Malik asked. Tae-os nodded. Good, Malik said. He climbed onto the bed. He sat next to Tae-os's legs. He didn't hug him. He just sat there, acting as a guard dog. Micah was more hesitant. He stood at the foot of the bed. Does it hurt? Micah asked. Yes, Tae-os rasped. I have an inhaler, Micah said. If you can't breathe. Tae-os closed his single good eye. A tear leaked out. Thank you, Min Seok, he whispered. My name is Micah, Micah corrected him softly. Micah, Tae-os repeated, testing the weight of it. Micah. 10 years later, I am sitting on the terrace of a villa in the hills of Tuscany. We don't live on the island anymore. We move every 2 years. We have new names, new passports. The money Tae-os hid in the Caymans, the money he didn't burn, is enough for 5 lifetimes, but we spend it quietly. Malik is 16. He is in the yard, practicing kendo with a wooden sword. He is fast, aggressive, and brilliant. He knows exactly who his father was. He knows the history. He carries a darkness in him, a sharp edge that I have to constantly dull with love and discipline. Micah is inside, playing the cello. He is the artist. He captures the sadness of the world and turns it into music. He still has asthma, but he doesn't need the inhaler as much. And Tae-os? He is in the garden, pruning roses. He wears a prosthetic mask on the left side of his face. It's made of silicone, painted to match his skin tone. It looks almost real from a distance. Up close, it looks like what it is, a lid on a tomb. He walks with a limp. The fire took the cartilage in his left knee. He is in pain every single day. He comes up the steps, wiping dirt from his hands. He sees me writing in this journal. The story? He asks. The end of it, I say. He sits beside me. He doesn't touch me often in public, even here, where no one knows us. He is still ashamed. But in the dark, in our bedroom, he holds me with a desperation that hasn't faded in a decade. Does it have a happy ending? He asks, looking out at the rolling hills. I don't know, I say. What is happy? Happy is boring, he says. Happy is safe. Then no, I say. It's not happy. I look at him. I see the man who humiliated me in a ballroom, the man who cast me out, the man who almost let my son die in a server room, the man who burned his own legacy to ash to save us. We are not a romance. We are a car crash that survived. I lost my mother. I lost my country. I lost the innocence of my children. He lost his face. He lost his family name. He lost his pride. We are damaged goods, held together by scar tissue and secrets. But when I look at Malik swinging that sword and I hear Micah's cello weeping through the open window, I know one thing. We won. We beat the house. We beat the devil. And we are still here, breathing the air that Hot Yoon tried to steal from us. Tae-os reaches out and covers my hand with his. His skin is rough, scarred, ugly. I love you, he says. It's not a promise. It's a confession. I know, I say. I love you too. I close the journal. The ash garden is blooming. The flowers are red, like blood. And for the first time in 10 years, I am not afraid of the fire. I am the fire.